Thanks for downloading Pave the Way Podcast. On this show, your host, Greg Helbeck, interviews the top minds in real estate, business, and personal development to help you crack the code so you can grow your business and, more importantly, grow your life. Get ready for another game-changing episode. If you want to learn how to master your day and become a productivity monster, download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day, spelled DAY.com. Now it's time for today's episode. Enjoy.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm here with Iker Solloa out of San Diego. And Iker is a guy who actually we connected. He was listening to my podcast. He still listens to my podcast. And he reached out to me about a year ago now. And we've been buddies ever since. He connected with me and some other podcasters. And he's a really impressive guy. We went out to dinner last year and I got to kind of learn more about you and your journey. And, the same on your end. You got to learn more about me. And man, it's been awesome to be one of your friends and to stay in touch ever since we first connected, man.
Hey, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a bit of a whirlwind since we first met, since I first DM'd you in Instagram, because you truly inspired me to take action. You're a young guy, and the eloquence that you have in the industry really inspired me to finally take part in my journey into the real estate space in the US, which I had never been part of.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's why your story was very unique as we got to, we'll talk about it today on the show. And, we had a great conversation over dinner last year. So you have a lot of experience. You own a call center down in Mexico, and you are extremely knowledgeable when it comes to using cold calling to, be a very effective, keyword there is effective, lead generation channel. So my question for you, honestly, just to get right off the bat here is, what got you into the cold calling industry to begin with? Like, how did all that kind of transpire? Because you've built something very impressive down there.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. The situation is not that simple. I didn't just start out of nowhere. I've been in multiple industries and very diverse, from yacht sales to construction in down south of the border to energy sale, solar farming. And it was about 14 years ago that a friend of mine invited me to invest in a cold call, into a cold call center. And about 6 years into the operation, unfortunately, he passed away.
Oh my gosh!
So I had already invested all this, and I was basically the capitalist in the endeavor, and he was industrial. He was the working side.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had already invested quite a bit, and I said, you know what? I think I need to get involved in this. Everybody needs to learn. They say you need 10,000 hours. It was a bit of a whirlwind to get to understand how the cold calling space works, not only in Mexico, but binationally, and the necessities of different clients in both parts. From there, it was acquiring clients on both parts of both in Mexico and in the US. As of right now, we were not in the REI space or close to it. We were servicing, and we still service AAA clients. That means that they basically they're traded. They're publicly traded.
Okay.
So we've had pretty important campaigns down here. We have multiple call centers, and that in reality is what gave us the grounds to very quickly come up with a product that we knew would be successful in the REI space.
Yeah.
Now, why specifically that? Well, since we do have a barrier of entry in any market, the first thing was, okay, let's set up an incubator of a product in any market, in any product that we actually launch. And then we go ahead and study all the, what you would call rebuttals of any industry to understand what and what part needs polishing in order for this to be a successful product. Because we know the requirements in cold calling into the US, even though competitors might say differently, we know that in order for it to become a successful product in an advanced or sophisticated clientele, you need accent, or should I say lack of accent, because that builds comfort, it builds security with your clients. Then we teach in all across our products, we teach tonality, which we learn through sales people that have taught us different ways to sell. And obviously, as you know, the using of pitch while you're talking, it gives what you're saying an importance levels.
Yeah.
So that's key. Obviously, that helps you build rapport. And rapport at the end of the day is what you have in common with the person you have on the phone. Because unfortunately, we don't have anybody in front of us.
Yeah.
So the quicker we build a rapport through making people feel comfortable and using tonality, it creates a much secure space for the person on the phone. Now, that doesn't mean obviously that we haven't had to work hard in order to get to where we are, and we still continue to thrive to deliver a viable product that ultimately transforms into leads for the REI sector.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And I would say the most important part of our product is the cultural alignment we have with our personnel and the people we're calling. What does that mean? It means that 85, I would say about anywhere from 85 to 87% of the people we have in this campaign, they've lived in the US for over 4 years.
That's a huge deal. And I just want to emphasize that because a lot of people, I'm going to give you an example and we'll put a pin there just because I want to drill this point home. If you get a cold call, or if I get a cold call from somebody and you don't know the number, you don't know who's calling you, and right off the bat, you can tell that they are not from, being specific, North America. They are not even from North America. They're from somewhere where it's 12-hour time difference. You automatically have your guard up and you're automatically in kind of a bad mood because you don't really know what's going on. And you feel like you said, you don't even have a connection with them. They're just some person overseas and they have no idea, about you. You don't know anything about them. And it leads to a potential wasted opportunity because that could have been a great cold call. They could have had a great message for somebody. But if that, like you said, the rapport wasn't there and you can tell they're really not from North America, it could turn a great opportunity into something someone might not be interested in just because of the cultural difference.
Listen, Greg, I think it's probably the most important part. And you hit it right on the nail because it's very different to receive a call. And let's say we know we're calling into one of your market areas, which is New York. And the majority of the people we have on the floor know and have a personal connection with our client. They know their territory. We try to teach them the social and economic situation of where we're calling into in order to give them a psyche of the type of customer we're going to be heading. So if we're calling into and we say, hey, Greg, I'm an investor in the area and I'm looking to purchase a house. By the way, how about those Jets? So, and the Jets maybe played yesterday and we're calling on a Monday. And that by itself, knowing because of we have data points on you. We know you're a 25-year-old guy. You live in New York. So most likely, either you're somehow or some way have an alliance or a touch base on the data points that we have. And if we can trigger those, we can build rapport and confidence level a lot easier.
Oh, 100%. And it also, like you said, that sets up the next step, which is now it's a lead. Hey, I have a property I want to sell. This is a little bit about it. You guys do a good job getting relevant information. And then when that lead, like it's all about what is the prospect thinking when they get off the phone? Oh, that was a cool call. Yeah, I actually want to sell my rental property because I haven't had a tenant who's paid in 2 years. Now, when that investor calls them back, they already have goodwill with you and they already know exactly what you're about because they had a good interaction with, someone who was representing your behalf. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I have, and you've received calls where, they have just a very thick accent. And the first thing that comes to mind is, I'm going to get scammed. Or I hope they don't ask me for my date of birth because I'm going to tell them no. Or something like that that entails for you to feel uneasy and bring up a guard immediately. That it will just say, it'll take your lead to not a high confidence level lead.
Yes.
So, and by itself, cold calling, it's not the most approachable marketing level or sophisticated way to call a lead. And even though I'm saying that, and that's the product I deliver, hear me out. So the difference between, mailers, between SMS, which basically it's dead now, but mailers, then you have also
online,
EPC, all of that is the necessity level. When you get online, Facebook, a lead, PPC lead, the necessity or the motivation level is a lot higher, right? So you might get 2-3 leads a week or 4 weeks a lead, and the motivation might be higher. But in cold call, you're going to get, depending on your bundle that you decide and how many calls you want to go ahead and invest in, you're going to get anywhere from 10 a week to 50 a week. And you have to realize this. The difference between the motivation level is because in the internet space or the mailer, they're activating or they're saying, hey, they're raising their hand saying, I need your help.
Yes.
Over here with cold call, it's a shotgun. We're trying to get that needle in a haystack, but we have 100 haystacks.
Yep.
So it's a different approach, and our clients need to understand, and when we vet them, because we're not necessarily a good fit for everybody. We're a good fit for people who are actually serious in the space and are looking to scale sooner than later.
Yes.
And then the cold call leads have a much, I would say, longer nurture into a conversion. So what does that mean? That means that you can be calling a lead today that might convert in a year. You're gonna get the low-hanging fruit, no matter. But if you stop cold calling tomorrow, one of those leads that probably we contacted today, it'll still keep giving you fruit within a year.
Yes, you're so right about that, man. You're so right about that. And that is why people don't understand that cold calling is all about, like you said, filling your funnel up. So instead of taking a list of 10,000 that's on an Excel spreadsheet, you cold call that list and then you go from 10,000 to 1,000. And now you have 1,000 people that know about you. They're in your CRM now. Now it's an actual like prospect in a database. And if you know how to work that database, your deal that made you 50 grand that you got last year, look at the ROI on your campaign because it's more of a longer cycle, but you can build a lot of momentum and you can keep your salespeople very busy because they're not going to have to be like, oh, when's the phone ring with PPC lead? Oh, it's not 2 a.m. I haven't gotten the PPC. Like you can predictably know every day you're going to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leads a day. Multiply that times 5, multiply that times 4, multiply that times 12, and the momentum is really where the magic happens. Would you say?
Exactly. So as you've said multiple times in your podcast, this business has two main pillars, which is marketing and sales.
Yeah, literally.
So if you know marketing, the marketing side, and you understand the trickle of each one of your marketing, then you can have a viable pipeline, which is you have your pipeline that's going to feed you tomorrow, which is the high motivation, the PPC or the Facebook. You're going to have the middle motivation, which usually is mailers.
Yeah.
And then you have your long play, which is cold call. That will ultimately feed you long basis.
100%.
So we are, like I said, we're not necessarily for everybody, but we are for those people who maybe a one person shop that want to actually start growing their business, and they need to start gathering and nurturing those leads for the long run.
Absolutely. And here's something I will say too about cold calling, because most of the leads are nurture, but there are cold call. I have friends who have cold called and they've made $175,000 on a wholesale deal from a cold call.
1,000%.
From a cold call, like whether the seller, like this is, and I get, we do a lot of marketing. Some sellers will love to be called and they'll only be responsive to cold calling. Some sellers will only call in through the mail. Some sellers like the fact that you sent them a text because they thought it was clever. Some sellers will hate that you called them. Some sellers will hate that you mailed them. And some sellers will hate that you texted them. So you can't please everybody, but you never know what media channel, whether that's call, text, or mail, is going to get that prospect to respond. And the way that I look at it is if you have data that you're marketing to, some people on that list that you're mailing might be more open to getting a call, right? It might be more convenient. They might be by their phone all day, or some people might like getting text. So you never know what the prospect is actually going to want if you're not marketing to them and tracking your results. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's logical. Not everybody you meet, you go into a party and you can immediately spot the shy guy, the talkative guy, the loudmouth. So everybody's different and everybody communicates differently. So your action points are differently with everybody. But one thing we all have in common is the following. If you nurture a relationship, right now may not be the point that I'm ready to sell my house, but we are in a market that it's about eventuality. Right now, I may not need to sell my house, but if I'm calling you and within 15 days, all of a sudden, you're moving to Phoenix, you say, great, thank God you called me. So if you nurtured your leads correctly, they will convert 100%.
100%. It's all about too, like the list too. Like as long as you have a reasonable list, you're not pulling a list of people who just bought their property last month. You know what I mean? Like it's a math game. That's why I love direct marketing, because it's purely math. You're going to get X amount of leads, a Y percentage of them are going to convert. You're going to make X amount of money on the conversion, and then you're going to have an ROI in your marketing campaign as long as it's profitable. And the biggest thing, especially in like the Northeast where I've done a lot of business, is that the sales cycle is very long in the Northeast because you have attorneys and it's just more of it's like a tougher area to do business in. So you have to make sure if you're calling specifically, you're measuring the success of a campaign over a 6 to 12 month period. You know what I mean? That's where the ROI really can explode. I'm sure you've obviously seen this in many different industries.
Yes, and you just hit it on the nail again, because the most important part any investor can do is track their data and understand their KPIs, their true KPIs, because you may want to measure absolutely everything, but the KPIs that actually move your needle, you need to be constantly looking at those, constantly. So what we did on our side, and this is completely proprietary on our side, all our clients receive a website, and they have access to that website, and they have all their KPIs live. And they have a reverse engineering calculator, because they may say, you know what, where I'm calling, I'm getting this contact rate. And we help you understand those KPIs of your market, of your data, and our connection rate. And not only that, but we say, You may say, you know what, I was looking at my leads and my conversion from leads to contracts to sales to actually money in my pocket. And I want to reach 1 million this year. And we say, what we did is we built a calculator in our website that you have access to as a client. You say, well, in order to reach those many deals a month, you need these many deals per day, these many leads per day.
Yes.
So it takes the guessing out of the business. And I think that's what everybody needs in any business. If we can take away the guessing, and actually help you create action and traction in your business, I mean, basically we're doing 90% of the job for you.
100%. And as long as you know your numbers, it's simply math at the end of the day. And you got to, have some phone skills, like some conversion skills, but that, like I said, people who know what they're doing already are going to have that. So you mentioned something earlier about KPIs when it comes to cold calling, like high level best practices for people. Maybe people want to just know a little bit more about KPIs for cold calling. What would you say, like from not the lead standpoint, but like good, reasonable KPIs in terms of like a connection rate and like how, like what is a connection? Because I know what it is, but what is a connection rate? Because some people are saying, what the heck does that even mean?
Let's start off, okay, with the basics. So let's say you make 100 calls.
Okay.
The first thing you need to know is how good is your data? Because you may be just calling phone numbers. So you need to start understanding what actually good data for cold calling is. So out of 100 phone calls that you make, good connection rate, it means the following. Anywhere from 10 to 20 people are going to pick up.
Like, and is it when you say 10, does that mean the prospect themselves or just people in general?
Somebody picks up the phone.
Picks up the phone. Okay.
Then you have the following KPI, which is that the actual data that we have that say we're actually calling to look for Greg. And we say, hey, Greg, this is such and such calling and we're local and we're looking to purchase property. If we get a response saying, yeah, this is Greg, or Greg is not here, but may I take a message? That is called a positive contact. That means we reach the person that we're looking for.
Okay.
If they say, no, Greg doesn't live here, or this is not Greg's phone, or that, we have our internal dispos or dispositions that ultimately rewire your campaign completely. And then every month we sit down and we look at your KPIs. But we need to start somewhere because every territory is different. Every single territory is different. It's, New York is very different than San Diego. Even just by itself, the customers, the savviness or the sophistication of the clients are very much different. So obviously your response is going to be vastly different. So we need to understand each and every territory that our clients are going into in order to not only set expectations, but place them in the adequate calling bundle that they need.
That makes a lot of sense. So with that being said, now with like some KPI stuff, would you say that general, and obviously every area is going to be different. Would you say that if you were to cold call in the Midwest, let's say you're in like Tennessee or something, would you say for the most part, as a high level, like just kind of, I guess, insight, would it generally be easier to call in a Tennessee or a Missouri or a Arkansas versus a Miami or a San Francisco, based on the price point and based on maybe the sophistication of that client?
It all comes down to geo-social economic levels, ultimately. The higher the geo-social economic levels, the more sophisticated a customer you're going to have. The more savvy and more informed they're going to be of their surroundings. The more they're going to know about how much their property is worth. In California, you look at your neighbor and just say, hey, buddy, do you know how much your property is worth? And I bet you within the week they went into a website to look at how much their property appreciated.
Yeah.
But then you go into a much rural area, and it's not that they're not informed. It's just that they're not as savvy computer wise. They're not so inclined into looking at property values, because first and foremost, California, your median is in the 400 range or higher.
Yeah.
You know, you go to Oklahoma, or you go somewhere, you can start looking at $150,000. So the impact of appreciation is not there so tangible.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And the thing with that is, and we don't want to scare people away from, if they're in an expensive market, you got to just figure, if you're in a more expensive area, it's probably going to take more leads and more money to get a deal. But when you get a deal, your margins are going to be higher, right? So like in San Diego, we've done wholesale deals where we've literally made $70,000 on one house. But if you go to Oklahoma, you're probably going to do a $70,000 assignment once every 10 years, because your average assignment is probably going to be 15 grand. So it's always a trade. And this will work in any market, right? It doesn't matter. I know people in Seattle who cold call. I know people in the Midwest who cold call. And it's all about, like you said, having a predictable system. And you guys have built a great product out where you guys have been able to kind of separate yourself from a lot of the other people offering cold calling, to where you actually have a real, valid, legitimate, unique selling proposition, which is really needed in today's marketplace, because it's a lot easier to go have, really cheap calling halfway around the world, but the results aren't going to be there. So when it comes to like your launch now for your product, first of all, what is the product called if people were interested in it?
Well, we built out a special website for people ultimately that are under your mentorship or follow you. So I suggest they go into greglovescoldcalls.com. That's again, greglovescoldcalls.com. That way, they're going to go ahead and receive a discount from the get-go.
Awesome. That's awesome. So
We'll know that they came from you.
Yeah.
And we'll treat them, with an extra special way.
We'll give them the Hellbeck special.
But you touch a very important point that I love to talk to my customers about, which is barrier of entry. Barrier of entry, you have a barrier of entry in any market that you're in. Forget REI, in any market, in any business. But we know, and it goes hand by hand, that the higher the barrier of entry, the bigger the reward. And that's completely normal. So it's just setting adequate expectations, because of course, we have people selling in San Diego, LA, we have people in Florida, we have in very hot markets. So, but we know the more competition, and if you're able to go ahead and place yourself in that market, you're going to make a killing.
You're going to make a killing. Exactly. And it's worth the maybe the more calls you have to make, because the reward is so much higher. And that's
higher the investment.
Higher the investment, higher the reward. And even if you're not in an expensive area, this will work even easier in your market. You're just probably not going to have bigger wholesale fees or bigger rental equity spread, depending on what you're doing. But the goal, like you said, this is something that you said earlier in the show, and I want to make sure people emphasize this, is if we're looking at cold calling from an objective level, like high level, the objective of a cold call is to generate a lead. And then once you have a lead, now it's up to you to obviously take that lead to the finish line. My suggestion and my recommendation is that Iker's company, and I can say this because I've had him cold call for me before and the results were great, is going to generate better cold call leads than the other ones. And I'm saying that because I've used Iker and they've brought me, phenomenal leads in San Diego, which is probably the hardest market in the country. If you ask me, just based on the prices and everything, it's very difficult out here. So it's all about filling up your funnel with quality leads, cost-effective leads. And I know for a fact, we've had many interactions. You have built a very valuable service out there for the marketplace. So as we start to summarize the show up, what are some of your goals for your new REI calling business that you launched? Like where would you like the vision for this company to be? And like, how do you really see it serving people maybe in the next 2 to 3 years as you guys really start to pick up some momentum?
You hit a great topic there. Actually serving. since I got into this space, my mind and my focus has shifted a little bit, because before it was mostly self-serving. And I've started noticing that when you start serving other people and helping other people, that translates into, huge, huge changes in your life. So what I would say, that I would love to build a base that is sustainable in the business, which is it already is, and then allow that to translate for us to give away cold call services to those who are starting out in the business or that actually need it. That I think we're starting that program in the next 90 days.
That's awesome.
So I'm really excited about that. Reaching out to mentors like yourself, and offering, hey, we have 3 months for any of your followers that you feel that actually would benefit and that mostly need it, in order to, and start offering that as value from ourselves to the industry.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome, man. That's freaking awesome. And I know you got a good thing going there. And the biggest thing I've noticed with you in terms of like how you bring a lot of value to the table, because, like I said, we've had several conversations, is you're a very sophisticated, smart business person. And I sincerely mean that. And you're able to come into an industry like real estate and see it from a different lens from other people. Because a lot of people get into this business and they don't have a lot of business experience. This is their first rodeo. This is their first business they've started. So they don't really understand how the game of business works. And you were able to come in and see this business from a very different vantage point, which allows you to offer unique services to the marketplace to ultimately add more value and have everyone, be successful. Like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Well, that all comes with failure.
Oh, yeah, it ain't easy.
I failed many times, and that ultimately gave me the knowledge to be able to adequately place a business. And so, yeah, it's time and failing that gives
time and failing. Exactly. As we wrap the show up here, you mentioned failure. What is, in your journey so far as an entrepreneur, you've been doing this for a very long time, what is a failure that you can think of in the past that stung pretty bad? And what lessons did you learn from that? Because people love to learn about some mistakes and failures, because everyone goes through it, and the more that we share, the more people can relate.
I think that my biggest failure that I've found in business was bad communication, because that translated not to only just one business, and I had to learn that lesson multiple times until I got the picture. If you can't communicate adequately, then you leave the door open for the worst thing that human beings have, which is having your mind go, in 1,000 different directions. So if you can adequately communicate with the people around you, you can, build majestic things.
I love it, man. I freaking love it. That is such good advice, man. Well said. Well said. So as we wrap up here, go to greglovescoldcalls.com to learn more about Iker's amazing product that he has in his, that he's, obviously that is already released, and it will obviously, the site will be rocking and rolling when you check it out. I guarantee you're going to be impressed with it. greglovescoldcalls.com. It's cold calls, correct? With an S at the end?
With an S. It's
yeah.
coldcalls.com.
greglovescoldcalls.com. Iker, if people wanted to follow you and check you out, what's the best social media platform if they wanted to follow you and connect with you?
I've never been huge on social media until I started in REI, but basically it's Iker, Iker, Solloa, Solloa, in Instagram. That's the easiest way. DM me, and I'll see if I can bring value to your life.
Sweet. We'll make sure we have that in the show notes too. Iker, Iker, Solloa. We'll have that in the show notes, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today, man. This was a blast.
Greg, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Pave the Way Podcast. We hope you got value from today's episode. Make sure you download Greg's free guide on daily personal productivity for free at www.pavetheday.com. That's Pave the Day, spelled DAY.com. If you have any questions or want to reach out, head over to www.pavethewaypodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.